So we have Jack Campbell, who signed a 5-year deal for $5 million in Edmonton. That's obviously the most notable Leaf who took his talents elsewhere. Ilya Mikheyev, who signed a 4-year contract for $4.75 million with the
Craziness.
Vancouver Canucks. Pretty crazy, if you ask me. And then, of course, we have Andre Kasha, who is also out the door. He signed for 1 year and $1.5 million in Carolina. So let's start with Jack Campbell. What are your thoughts on this? Because we kind of alluded to Campbell in our conversation about Matt Murray and the Leafs goaltending. Clearly, Dubas was not comfortable giving Jack Campbell a 5-year deal. It just didn't make sense. As good as Campbell was in Laporte, like, I'm a Campbell fan. I think he's a good goalie. And when he's at his best, he can be like a top 10 goalie in the league. He really can. But the problem is he's not consistent. He was terrible in the second half of the season. From January 1st on last year, he had an .890 save percentage. He was awful at the second half of last season. In the playoffs, save percentage under 900. He's a very volatile goalie, man. As good as he can be, and as much as we probably both like him, I don't know, man. That's still a risk, in my opinion, for Edmonton. But then Edmonton fans will probably come in and say, we had Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen in the last few years. This feels like we have Patrick Waugh.
Yeah, for sure. From Edmonton, it's weird because I look at it from Toronto's perspective, and I'm like, no way. Like, I wouldn't have been happy if they committed 5 years to Jack Campbell, because any goalie I would give that kind of deal, I'd ask myself the question, is he good enough to win the Stanley Cup? And beyond the thing of, like, the teams that win with average goaltending, people know what I mean by that. A goalie that can win you the Stanley Cup is, I guess, the best way I'd put it. And my answer would be no. And I think most people would say no. At the end of the day, looking back over the last couple of years, how many games did Campbell steal for us? None.
Not a lot.
None. I mean, not that he played poorly, whatever. There was that. Is it just me? The bad goal against Montreal in Game 7.
The Gallagher goal?
Yeah, we're the Toronto Maple Leafs. I feel like that goal doesn't get as much attention as it deserves. Like, that was a terrible goal.
Yeah, that was awful.
Second period, 0-0, like, shot, like, on a one-on-one situation, just beats him. It was a 5-hole. But anyways, I wouldn't have committed that kind of money if I was Toronto. But I give credit to Ken Holland for putting his dick out there and just making the team better. I think if I was in his position with the McDavid situation, you have the best player of this generation. Any move you can make that makes the team, like, even incrementally better, yeah, you do it. So, okay, he made his goaltending better. If he had to commit 5 years, he had to commit 5 years, whatever. I don't think it'll end up being like a terrible deal, but I don't hate it for Edmonton. And I'm, like you said, I mean, we're all Jack Campbell fans. We're happy he got the payday and that someone committed to him, and we wish him well. But no, like, I mean, I'm happy Toronto didn't do it. Like, I think a lot of fans, I would say people were torn on Jack Campbell, but I think people are like, oh, we could have got Campbell for that. He's not that good. Like, he's like you said with Murray and Samsonov, you're hoping they're fine, or they could be fine. Jack Campbell, he said he's very volatile. He's hot, he's cold. Overall, he's fine. So you committed 5 years to a guy who's fine. No, like, I mean, if I'm the Leafs, it's not my thing.
And here's the thing, like, it could be bad for one team and good for another team. That's the way I view it, right? Like, Jack Campbell, again, I'll say it for the third time. I think he's a good goalie, but in the context of the Leafs and their roster and their salary cap situation, it didn't make sense. Whereas for Edmonton, it did make sense because, as Laporte mentioned, you have the best player of this generation. You have Leon Draisaitl. They bring back Evander Kane. They're a good team. They just went to the conference finals. Now, I still think they have flaws, and I still think their defense core is not good enough, and I still think they have even depth issues up front in their bottom six, but that's a team that needed goaltending. They needed goaltending more than anything, and they can fit Jack Campbell under the salary cap. It made more sense in the context of that team and the situation that they're in, and all the power to Ken Holland and Edmonton. If they think that Jack Campbell's their guy, then by all means go for it, because he's definitely an upgrade over Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen. I think we could confidently say that.
I heard rumors that Smith is going to go on LTIR.
Possibly, yes. I've seen the same rumors. So that remains to be seen. But yeah, Edmonton fans have to be happy that they finally have a new goalie and a goalie who, they can be excited about. Now, I wouldn't get too excited about Jack Campbell because, even if you look at like both teams, how they play defensively, I would say the Leafs are a better defensive team than Edmonton. So it'll be interesting to see how Campbell transitions, how he looks. Like, he's 30 years old at the end of the day. This isn't a spring chick here. I mean, he's still a relatively young guy, but you're committing 5 years to this guy. It's going to take him to his age 35 season. It's not the safest bet, but again, when you have Connor McDavid and you're trying to win now, you can almost make an argument that any good player you add in free agency is a decent decision.
And is Picard going to be their backup?
No, so they got Stuart Skinner.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Who played, right. I think he played like 10, 15 games last year for Edmonton. He was their
they like him.
guy.
They like him though. I think
it looks like he's probably going to be the backup goalie, depending on what happens with Mike Smith and his injury situation. But the Edmonton Oilers, I think overall they're happy about this. But who knows, Laporte? This could swing in the other direction real quick. Same thing with Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov. Like, I'm not, I wouldn't be that comfortable with any of those guys.